Good evening and welcome to the People's Planning Academy exhibition. I'm so glad to see all of you here this evening. My name is Carmen Leffig. I'm the Administrator for Long Range Planning at the City of Indianapolis Department of Metropolitan Development. Tonight is a celebration of the past 8 weeks of our participants' dedication to educating themselves about urban planning, local history, and their roles in shaping Indianapolis. Before we go any further, I'd like to recognize our partner and sponsor. This training is made possible by a partnership between the City of Indianapolis Department of Metropolitan Development and the Indianapolis Neighborhood Resource Center. Funding for this training has been provided by Indiana Humanities with support from the National Endowment for the Humanities. This training has been recognized as an official bicentennial project. I would like to share a quote with you. An educated, enlightened, and informed population is one of the surest ways of promoting the health of a democracy. This is an excerpt from a 2003 speech by Nelson Mandela, where he discussed the role education plays in addressing the social problems and challenges facing South Africa. This is truly the heart of People's Planning Academy. We believe equipping our neighbors with a better understanding of planning is in the best interests of our city. We started this training in 2017 with the purpose of investing in community leaders. City planning impacts so many facets of our lives. Just think about it. If you take a walk outside, almost everything you see has been shaped by planning in some way. From the locations of our roads, design of the buildings, the retail spaces, the homes and the parks that you visit, the list goes on. It's crucial that our neighbors not only understand planning processes, but are empowered to advocate for their communities and for themselves. City planning isn't just for developers or people with degrees in urban planning. We believe that everyone plays a role in how our city is shaped. People's Planning Academy invests in community leaders so they can become planning leaders and stronger advocates for their communities. What is PPA? People's Planning Academy is a training to demystify city planning in Indianapolis and equip neighbors with tools to shape the future of their communities. PPA has 3 elements: curriculum, community experts, and games and activities. A carefully curated curriculum, the content of the training is curated to highlight the unique realities of Indianapolis. Although the foundation of the training is educating neighbors about city planning, each year we have focused on a specific planning topic. Classes are facilitated by community experts. Class instructors have included city planning staff, nonprofit professionals, and grassroots organizers. The instructors served as a valuable resource to help create the academy content and help participants achieve their goals. And finally, interactive learning is central to the program's success. DMD staff, in collaboration with community experts, have used their unique skill sets and experiences to create one-of-a-kind professional quality games that simplify complex topics for participants. This is the 3rd year the Academy has been offered. In 2017, our first year, the training focused on the values outlined in the city's bicentennial agenda. In addition to learning the fundamentals of city planning, participants also learned how planning helps achieve goals of making Indianapolis healthier, more resilient, more inclusive, and more competitive. The Academy also trained participants how to use the Land Use Pattern Book, which is the written component of the Marion County Land Use Plan. It outlines land use types and the conditions used to determine where different land uses are appropriate. Participants who completed PPA in 2017 worked side by side with staff to develop the land use map component of our plan. In 2019, the training focused on an update to the local zoning ordinance to support transit-oriented development. The curriculum explored the relationships between transportation and land use throughout the city's history, Participants were encouraged to participate in the ordinance update process. Since the training began in 2017, over 240 people have completed People's Planning Academy. It has received glowing reviews and national recognition. The Harvard University Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation published an article about how People's Planning Academy served as a model for increasing representation in planning and zoning processes. The Indiana University Environmental Resilience Institute selected People's Planning Academy as a case study for addressing issues facing the city. People's Planning Academy received the 2019 American Planning Association National Planning Achievement Gold Status Award for Public Outreach for the People's Planning Academy. So for the next part of the presentation, I will pass it over to Ari, who will discuss this year's training. Ari Beatty is a writer, community curator, and serves as a neighborhood development director at INRC. Her passion for community storytelling and asset-based community development has led her to create projects like Woo Girl Fest, Hoi Polloi Art Gallery, and others. She's currently managing the Creative Placemaking Program by working with different community and neighborhood groups across the city to create spaces into places. She's also published in Afropunk 60 Inches from Center and has produced audio stories for WFYI. Welcome, Ari.
Hi, Carmen, and hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. So I remember learning about asset-based community development during my public ally year. I discovered those methods mirror a lot of the work my friends and peers do in the local arts community. I was finally able to put a name to the magic. When I started at INRC in 2019, I remember thinking, finally, I'm able to integrate my personal and professional passions into one. I love the work we do at INRC, and the partnership we have with the Department of Metropolitan Development strengthens that work. From presentations, from planning staff to People's Planning Academy, the collective focus is equipping neighbors with tools to shape the future of their communities. Neighbors tapping into the power that they already have to shape their future is going to shape our city for the better. Learning about topics like planning, zoning, redlining, and housing discrimination, and even transit history like you all have studied over the past few months, can fully prepare you to help create a more equitable future. The capacity building work INRC does aligns so clearly with this focus. From our different programs like the Indianapolis Community Building Institute, the Creative Placemaking Program, Neighbor Power, and other programs like Public Allies, we help community members understand the importance of community involvement. This starts with recognizing neighbors as assets across all demographics. Everyone has a gift to share, and when powers combined, like a large network partnered with a clear knowledge of the city's history, we can continue to build for the better and shape our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ari. Next, I will introduce Deputy Mayor Bennett. Deputy Mayor Bennett is Deputy Mayor of Community Development for the City of Indianapolis. He brings to City Hall 2 decades of experience working in local government and nonprofit community development. In his role as Deputy Mayor, Jeff works to restructure and coordinate city departments to better serve neighborhoods, aiming to increase ease of interaction, break down bureaucratic silos, and improve service delivery. Prior to returning to city government, Jeff was the Director of Real Estate Services in Indiana for IFF, a regional community development financial institution, and served 2 terms as Warren Township trustee. Welcome, Deputy Mayor Bennett.
Hey, thanks, Carmen, and good evening, everyone. It's my honor to join you on behalf of the mayor. As we conclude the 2021 edition of the People's Planning Academy, I think it's important to recognize that this is the first cohort of the People's Planning Academy since so much upheaval and change visited our city and the world in 2020. So while it's always important for residents to engage with and understand the community development process, I think it's especially meaningful now. In the coming months and years, city planning will take on an added dimension because the truth is we've faced few recovery efforts quite like the one we're experiencing right now, because the recovery efforts going on while the pandemic itself is still occurring. And so I think that's why your presence here and your participation over the past 8 weeks and in the future is so vital. The city is extremely grateful for you, all of you who've made the commitment to learn about development and planning of Indianapolis neighborhoods. Your partnership and your leadership will be critical. During the past several weeks, you've studied the ins and outs of complex issues across 2 centuries of Indianapolis history. You've talked about planning and zoning and affordable housing and community development and our public transportation system and our waterways. But just as importantly, you've looked at how inequitable policies and planning can have negative impacts on communities, a present day understanding of redlining and other kinds of housing discrimination and how they've manifested themselves here in Indianapolis is critical if we're to achieve more equitable development in our city's future. So this process that you've completed over the past 8 weeks, along with the presentations made here today, I think will enable a stronger recovery and a better future for Indianapolis. I'd like to take a moment to recognize the staff of our city's Department of Metropolitan Development, our partners at the Indianapolis Neighborhood Resource Center and at Indiana Humanities. It was their partnership that enabled this curriculum to be developed and to ensure that it was shaped by local experts and community leaders. I'm personally and professionally grateful to be able to work every day with the talented DMD team. Finally, on behalf of our city and the mayor's office, thank you all for taking the initiative to sign up for the People's Planning Academy and to do so at such a historic inflection point in our city's history. You're doing your part for a more engaged, more equitable, and more prosperous future for Indianapolis and our neighborhoods. Thank you for allowing me to join you for a few minutes here tonight.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor. Next, I will introduce Brittany Redd. Brittany is a senior land use planner in DMD, and she's led the effort in planning for this year's PPA. Welcome, Brittany.
Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you, Carmen, for the introduction. As Carmen mentioned, my name is Brittany Redd. I'm the principal planner for land use strategy at DMD. I also manage People's Planning Academy, which is my favorite part of the job. I have the privilege of working with an awesome team to find fun and engaging ways to educate Indy residents about city planning and development, so the people at the table advocating and making important decisions about Indianapolis are more representative of our community. This year's training aligned with the city's bicentennial agenda. In addition to the fundamentals of city planning, the curriculum also included the history of planning in Indianapolis and how to research local history. Back in 2020, when we began planning the training, we were kind of unsure how it would turn out. We were in the middle of a pandemic and social unrest and didn't know if people wanted to or had the capacity to participate in the online training. However, the team believed equipping our residents and our community with a deeper understanding of planning and local history was more important than ever. I'm so excited and so pleased with how the training unfolded this year. We have a highlight video from this year's training that we'd like to show you. Let's go ahead and start the video.
People's Planning Academy is a training to demystify city planning and equip neighbors with tools to shape the future of Indianapolis. The title of the 2021 training was People's Planning Academy, 200 Years of Planning. The training covered the history of Indianapolis, including the people, places, and events that have shaped the city. The training was entirely virtual. We created an online learning network, which covered a variety of topics and allowed participants to connect with other passionate neighbors. Here are some of the highlights from People's Planning Academy, 200 Years of Planning. planning staff members Daniel Hedgeland, Brittany Red, and Marlene Arajeta explained how city planning works in Indianapolis, including how to interpret the zoning ordinance, look up property information, and be involved in updates to the comprehensive plan. The participants also learned about the key decision makers who help plan the city, like the Indiana General Assembly, the mayor, the City County Council, the Council's Metropolitan and Economic Development Committee, the Metropolitan Development Commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals, city staff, and neighbors like you. Andrea Miller and Carmen Lethig facilitated a class that explained how real estate development shapes the city. In addition to learning the basics of real estate development, participants also learned about strategies to create and preserve affordable housing. During the virtual class, participants spoke to a panel of Indianapolis housing developers. However, the training covered much more than the basics of city planning and development. Jordan Ryan and Callie Kennington facilitated a class about the importance of local history. Jordan explained how to use city resources and local archives to research neighborhood history. The participants were assigned homework to conduct their own research and share their findings with the group. Mary Ann shared her experience researching the history of her childhood library. Brendan shared his discoveries of entertainment spots on Indy's Far East Side. Colin's research revealed how racial bias impacted people in his neighborhood. Carletta discovered how industry shaped the area surrounding her neighborhood. Cassandra shared how her Fall Creek Place neighborhood has changed. Danielle explored the history of the Lacey Building located on Monument Circle. One participant wrote about his homework assignment in a neighborhood newspaper. Another participant posted a Twitter thread about their research. Paula Brooks and Dr. Terry Jett facilitated a class that explored the history of Black neighborhoods in Indianapolis. The class featured special guests Carlette Duffy, Amy Nelson, and Justin Garrett Moore. Carlette and the Fair Housing Center of Central Indiana recently filed a housing discrimination complaint to the federal government. The guest speakers explained the harsh realities of housing discrimination in Indianapolis, including redlining, reverse redlining, and property devaluation. Some of the participants shared stories of race-based housing discrimination in Indianapolis. But it wasn't all bad. Justin described how Black residents conducted research to understand their community needs and created a plan to address them, which included establishing a self-help housing program that provided residents with homeownership opportunities, building a large-scale farm to provide fresh and affordable food, and planning, designing, and constructing a community center that provided a variety of neighborhood services. Brad Bobian and Austin Gibble gave presentations about the history of Indianapolis transportation and waterways. Austin explained how the various modes of transportation affected the people and the land throughout history. Brad explained how the waterways have impacted us and how we have impacted our waterways. He discussed a timeline of key events dating all the way back to the glaciers of 20,000 years ago. For homework, they participated in a scavenger hunt and explored features offered along our historic waterways and the transportation options. Casman visited the Pogues Run Nature Preserve. Jesse visited White River State Park and shared photos from the scavenger hunt. People's Planning Academy 200 Years of Planning was filled with memorable moments of discovery and sharing. Stay tuned for the next opportunity for you to be involved in People's Planning Academy.
Awesome. I hope you enjoyed the highlights. It was such a great experience being a part of PPA this year. Before I continue, I'd like to take a second to acknowledge the people who helped develop this year's training. Our team included employees from Department of Metropolitan Development and community experts. Paula Brooks is an environmental justice coordinator at the Hoosier Environmental Council. Daniel Hedgeland is a senior planner for information and innovation at DMD. Marlene Iraheta is a senior planner for DMD. Dr. Terry Jett is a professor at Butler University, as well as special assistant to the provost for diversity and inclusivity. Callie Kennington is the senior planner for community engagement at DMD. Carmen Lethig is the administrator for long-range planning at DMD. Andrea Miller is a long-range planner at DMD, and Jordan Ryan is an architectural archivist, activist scholar, and principal owner of the History Concierge, LLC. Since last summer, these folks have worked to create an impactful training that could transform planning in our city for the better. Tonight, we have two of the community experts who helped develop the training to share some of their experience during the training. Welcome, Paula and Jordan. Each of you played key roles in making PPA possible, from writing letters to help acquire funding, to recording videos and making class assignments. So thank you so much for your hard work. And I'm hoping that you can share a little bit about how you were involved in the training and any meaningful moments that you can remember this year.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Okay, I'll take it away. Well, first I want to say congrats to all the PPA participants for all of your hard work these last few months. I want to thank you all for your willingness to learn about the historic context of the built environment in neighborhoods and the history of our waterways and changing transportation. I really enjoyed developing content for these modules and working with so many of you on your projects. So like I said, in our local history module, historic context is necessary for understanding how we got here as a city. You might ask yourself why a lot is shaped the way it is to discover that there was a historic alley cutting through it back in the 1860s. Or maybe you're making connections between some of the most dense neighborhoods today and some of the earliest platted downtown neighborhoods. Whatever your interest may be, I hope you can start to think about how historic planning and development decisions made 50 years, 100 years, even 200 years ago directly shape our city today. So a few takeaways I have for our PPA cohort. One, always be curious. There's never stop asking why something is the way it is. Curiosity is one of the most important things when it comes to research and discovery in archives. The second thing I want you to do is always dream. There's no harm in thinking big or creatively or thinking about different innovation. Look at what other cities are doing. And lastly, it's not about knowing everything. It's about knowing how to find what you don't know. There's always new resources, new collections, new databases being made accessible. So the point is to not be an expert, because truly you can never be an expert in everything, but to know how to find the information that you need for whatever your project or your goal is. So I hope that I got you started on the types of resources that are accessible in town, and I want you to be curious and to keep finding more. I really enjoyed working with so many of you on your individual building and neighborhood histories, whether it's flood history, Broad Ripple Village history, Willard Park history, even our park scavenger hunt that led to a discussion about our lack of sidewalks in some areas. I was really thrilled to see all the different perspectives and interests and areas of the city kind of coming together and being highlighted in your projects. So thanks again for allowing me to be a small part of your journey, and I'll pass it over to Paula.
Well, good evening, everyone. The beauty of going last is that I can endorse all that's been said prior from Ryan, from Jordan, and also from Deputy Mayor Bennett and Administrator Ligrit. This has been a great experience for me, and I wanted to just kind of give you a little bit more background on why I'm involved. My role as a curriculum developer has been a bit unique. I participated in the pre-planning of or the preparation of the land use, the comprehensive land use planning. Brad Bobian at that time was administrator, and he sought out counsel from myself and my colleague Indra Frank on equity, including equity in the land use plan. So from that point, I kind of kept tabs on what was going on, and we were very happy to know that Brad is a visionary, and equity was highlighted in the land use comprehensive land use plan. That was great. It was really the first time that had happened in the city. I did then from there. I participated in the first session of PPA, and I got my certificate, and I actually have it in my office on the wall. I was really proud of that. It was a great experience. And then in 2019, I participated again in the second session, and that was great too. And so it gave me a lot of background when Brittany reached out to me and asked me would I be willing to participate this time as developing the curriculum with Dr. Jett. And we were tasked with housing discrimination. It's a topic that both of us knew a lot about. We had personal experience with discrimination. We had experience with redlining. We've had experience with just kind of coming from neighborhoods that are undervalued. So as Dr. Dead and I, we met several times and we were trying to flesh out how we were going to structure the class. We kind of decided that we wanted to make sure that the participants were not lectured to. We wanted to make sure that people were able to kind of connect the dots, so to speak, when it comes to the neighborhoods here in Indianapolis. I find that a lot of people, either you're too young, you were born in the 90s or the 2000s, you're a millennial, or you're a transplant and you come to the city and you kind of, nod, you shake your head and say, why is the city laid out this way? Why are the neighborhoods as they are? In my work, I try to make sure I emphasize that you have to go underneath the surface when you go in neighborhoods, Black and brown neighborhoods, because for the most part, people are proud of their neighborhood. And when you look at the conditions, a lot of times that's tied to disinvestment, public disinvestment, as well as private disinvestment. It's not that the people in the neighborhood are not concerned about their living conditions. Fortunately, we were able to get Carletta and Ms. Nelson and the brilliant Justin Moore to come in and basically share their firsthand experiences with discrimination. And I think that that was a brilliant move for us in terms of creating this class, because we made it relatable. And it wasn't really theory, something that's happening on the West Coast or the East Coast. It's something current, and it was happening right here to a city employee. She was being discriminated against. So I'm really grateful to have had this opportunity to participate in this wonderful People's Planning Academy. And I hope that you all have been benefited as well, and that the knowledge that you've gained, because all of the presenters were experts, the staff is experts, that you'll take that knowledge and kind of just put it in the back of your head. So the next time you drive through a neighborhood, you can look at it with different eyes. You can say, oh, there's no sidewalks there, or as Jordan mentioned, oh, that was a historic alley. That's why the alley is so narrow. Or, oh, there's the brick cobblestone street is under the asphalt, or the limestone curbs, and you can actually kind of feel those who came before you. Again, thank you very much for allowing me to participate in this session and program, Brittany. I really appreciate it.
Oh no, it was amazing to have both of you a part of the training from the very beginning. I know it was a little rough at the beginning in 2020. We didn't have any money to fund the training. We were hoping that we got a grant. And so it's been such an honor to work alongside all of you, from this being just a concept, like people need to know about the history. It aligns, this training year aligned with the bicentennial. And like I said earlier, at the time, it was kind of like, does it make sense to have this training in the middle of everything that's going on? And I think we made a really great decision to have the training because, like I said earlier, it's more important than ever to know why things are the way they are, to have this historical context, not just providing the historical context, which You both facilitated wonderful classes. Just to reiterate the classes that I'm referring to, Jordan alongside Callie Kennington, they facilitated a class about local history. So Jordan did a phenomenal job about walking participants through the city resources and the local archives, how they can use those to research local history. And then also two other, well, I think it was one other class where we talked about the history of transportation and waterway planning. You guys were awesome in selecting guest speakers, Austin Gibble and Brad Bobian, to provide that context. That's history that we don't often think about. We don't think about how we have a rich history of like streetcars and interurbans, and how the glaciers of 20,000 years ago still affect us, affect our waterways. So thank you for that. Paula and Dr. Terry Jett curated a class about Black communities in Indianapolis, the experience of Black communities, including some of the unfortunate realities of discriminatory housing and redlining and property devaluation. So that was great. I think what's even more amazing is the work that came from the participants that were equipped with that knowledge. So I'm hoping that maybe you all can highlight a couple of meaningful moments that you've gained from the participants. In the highlight video, I talked about, well, the highlight video mentioned that it was completely virtual. So all of this communication happened through an online network that we created for People's Planning Academy. So in addition to having the classes, there was also an interactive component. So people were sharing these discoveries that they had. So do you guys have any things that kind of jump out to you that you want to share with the folks watching about the discoveries of the participants along the way?
Well, I was pleasantly surprised at how personal the stories were that were shared. I don't really have that capacity myself, so I admire that. And when you're trying to effect change, it's not easy, and you have to personalize experiences. So I think for me, the fact that we were able to, as you had mentioned before, we had such a diverse attendees, that we were able to kind of just get a different perspective on different agendas, I guess I could say. For instance, and I wish I could remember his name, but there was a younger person that was really wanting to further urbanize the city. And, I usually think when people want to do that, it's a change that's hard to effect here in Indianapolis, because Indianapolis at its core is a big, small town. So to have big dreams, that's necessary to effect change. So I really enjoyed that portion of it, just getting to know some of the participants better.
I was really impressed with Leon's research on flooding. We know that floodplains are an equity issue and a segregation issue, and Leon really did a lot of deep dives into, no pun intended, into sort of the flooding history, particularly the Great Flood in 1913. I was really impressed with Alan's deep dive into sort of the land history and different buildings of Broderickville Village. And I think it was maybe Josh on Twitter who, I'm a big sidewalk justice kind of person because I walk a lot. And he was, talking about his observations around park access and sort of sidewalks just ending. And I found that really touching.
Yeah, for me, one of the things that kind of stuck out is how oftentimes we think about things occurring in the past, and how, that happened in the past. We've moved beyond that. But throughout the training, there were themes that emerged that, like, this isn't Like either we're coming back to what we already knew. Like, for instance, we had a vast transit network. We had like streetcars interurban traveling throughout our city. And then the automobile came along and we decided we don't need that anymore. Let's pave over it. And now we're returning through to mass transit and like bringing on the Red Line and other bus rapid transit lines. But then also things like housing discrimination. During Paula and Terry's class, we talked about the things of the past, which we learned that things like redlining happened in the past, but also there's, you know, they're not too far from the past. They're also happening now. As we were talking about housing discrimination, what occurred with Carlette Duffy, as far as her appraisal rates and that going viral, we had participants and even our guest speakers say that also happened to me. And this isn't 20, 30 years ago. This is pretty recent. So I think it's important to have those, that we had those revelations during the academy, because yeah, that's, for me, it was exciting to see people kind of have those light bulb moments. And then also, I think some people know about redlining. That's been so prominent in the news. There are all these book clubs about redlining, but there's other things as well. And then also learning that it wasn't all bad. Like, despite some of these unfortunate realities happening in Black communities, like Flanner House was doing amazing things. The Black community was doing amazing things as far as self-empowerment, home ownership, that sort of thing. So those are exciting things for me. I can't wait to share the final projects with everyone. I was really blown away by the work that the participants did. Back in 2020, I think there was an uncertainty, like, we never asked them to do a final project. Is this gonna be too much? And and we were invested in the final project because, you know, this is an opportunity to apply your knowledge, but then also like work with this awesome group of experts to do your own research. And yeah, I am blown away. I can't stop smiling because of the quality of work people put behind these final projects. That being said, I want to go ahead and wrap this up. Do you all have any additional comments that you want to share before we move on to our participant reflections?
I just would like to share that I think that this experience is just one step towards justice. You know, the goal a lot of times is equity, but we have to move towards equity and look at justice. So in each session, I think that was actually a unsaid but running theme. So I'm really happy to be part of an innovative program.
Thanks for saying that, Paula. That's the goal. That's the goal. I'm glad you feel that way.
I absolutely agree. You know, when I did the first PPA, it was sort of under the thought of, I'm going to learn the language that planners use so that I can better stand up for my community and articulate why we support or don't support, you know, certain proposals, and use the same language so that I'm not missing the mark or focusing on arbitrary things. And through this process, I've met so many people that care about the same ideas and the same kind of justice, and I don't feel so alone in that. And there's like a community you build throughout, you know, doing this work, and that's really important so that we don't burn out or we don't just sort of spin our wheels.
Yeah, for sure. There's so many passionate neighbors, and now they're equipped with that planning knowledge, with the knowledge to, you know, dive into local history and advocate and say, hey, I don't think this is a good idea because this is what happened in my community before, or this is a great idea because this is what we tried in the past. So I completely agree with you, Jordan. Again, thank you so much for all the work that both of you did over the course of the training and I can't wait to work with you in the future. I'm putting that out there for the next PPA. So thank you both.
Thank you.
So next, we are going to reflect on, or we're going to talk about some of the participant reflections. If we can go ahead and, one thing I want to mention, as Carmen mentioned, this was our third year hosting People's Planning Academy. In previous years, we received feedback from participants that they wanted more opportunities to apply what they learned. So we adjusted the content of PPA to provide more opportunities for practical application. This included participants completing final projects about a topic that interests them. A few graduates created video reflections about their experience in the training and discussed their final projects. So let's go ahead and show those videos.
Hi, I'm Alan Haig. I'm a 7th generation north side of Indianapolis person, and I was happy to be accepted into the PPA this year. It was a virtual thing, so it was new for everybody, but I think it worked out really well. Through all these classes, I learned all kinds of new research methods. I've been doing history research for some time with broadrpplehistory.org and the Broad Ripple Gazette. And I learned things like what the Common Council was of Indianapolis, and that reference all the reference volumes that go with that helped my research. But I already understood most of the zoning of the city, the DMD zoning, from my coverage of the Broad Ripple Gazette over the years. But I did learn a lot of things about the bad side of Indianapolis, the racism, the redlining, the bad practices that went on over the years, with really get an understanding of that better from the guest speakers that we got to hear. And that was very meaningful. Through the homework assignment, I learned that my great-great-grandfather was part of developing the new post office in Broad Ripple. And back in 1925, I had no idea. From my project, I expanded on that and built a website at broadrpplehistory.org and put all my annexation research that I've compiled from the Common Council minutes and many other sources. So I was happy to be part of the PPA, and good luck to the future of it.
Hello, my name is Felicia Williams, and I attended this year's 2021 People Planet Academy. I just wanted to briefly give an overview of the benefits of attending the program for me this year. I was originally born and raised in Gary, Indiana, so I've been a Hoosier all of my life. However, I do consider Indianapolis my home. A lot of times, I tell a lot of people this, we move around the city. I've done the historical scavenger hunts before, came across things, but didn't really know exactly what they were, or the story or the history behind it per se. And so attending this year's session actually allowed me to dive a little bit deeper into some of those things, right? In addition to that, some of the key elements and key takeaways for myself for this year's session is when we talked about planning. And so basically the advantages of planning is, though, we can't work at making a change within our communities by ourselves. So learning the timelines, the time frames, and what all goes into planning allows me to be able to know how to give back in the community. And planning just provides guidelines for our neighborhood and provides a framework for us to continue to be able to make these types of changes in our community. By attending this year's session, I was actually able to create a community profile. So I was actually able to look at neighboring communities around the city, and be able to view different demographics. And just this type of information alone is going to be very monumental to me as I continue to give back in the community. I'll know where to go to get the information from to continue to do my research, as well as how to continue to make strides personally, individually, as well as sharing the information that I've learned as well with others. So the program this year has definitely been a benefit to me, enhanced my knowledge, and I hope that given the opportunity that others can also attend the session. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Jesse Charles. I participated in the People's Planning Academy 2021. Wanted to give a big shout out to the program as well as all the folks who put it on. It was great. I appreciate all the hard work. Thank you very much. Thinking about what to put in this video, I kind of feel like there's a running joke about primary and secondary education not teaching real life skills like balancing a checkbook or understanding how taxes work. And I think that this material kind of fits in that category of things you'd really need to be able to participate in the planning of the community that you live in. It's just hard to find that information, I think. So it's great to get it in this format. For my final project, I did a community profile of my area, which is Fountain Square. I chose this project because my line of work is user experience. And in that, we strive to put the user at the center of the software design process. One of the tools I use regularly to do that is called a persona, where we collect information about the users that we have and kind of sum it up into one. And we use that to build and share empathy with the team that's doing the software development and to keep the user in the center of that process. And I think it's much the same with community planning. I think the user, who are the people who live in an area, really should be a part of the process, and doing things like the community profile help to represent their interests. Yeah, thanks to People's Planning Academy, I've got a lot of great tools that I can use to understand and advocate for the community. I've also got a good understanding of some of the big past mistakes that Indianapolis has made as far as community planning, and there are some big ones. I'm really hoping to use all that to get more involved, make positive change, and to help avoid Indianapolis making more of those big mistakes. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Teresa Crawford Cottenham. I thoroughly enjoyed being a part of the People's Planning Academy. The lessons were rich. I decided to do my project on the catacombs under the city market. I hope that everything is going well with everyone, and I look forward to having our final meeting. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Marissa, and unfortunately I can't be with you all for the exhibition tonight because of class, but I did want to talk about my final project for the People's Planning Academy and talk about some of the tools that I used to create it as well. Something that I really appreciated about this program was the flexibility to research our own neighborhoods or topics of interest to us within the structure of the program. And so for me, the most influential modules, I think, were learning how to research the history of our city, looking at racial equity through the history of Indianapolis, and looking at transportation within our city as well. For myself, I'm really interested in the overlap of our built environment and natural environment and public health. And so I used those modules and some tools from People's Planning Academy to create this infographic about green space and public health in the city of Indianapolis. So most of my project was influenced by data from Savvy, and I was really surprised to find, first of all, how accessible and easy to use the Savvy database is, but also some of the interesting statistics that they offer. A lot of my information was more typical demographics, like our age breakdown in the city, but being able to find out the percentage of people who commute to work using a car or not was really interesting for me and my interest in active transportation. In addition to Savvy, I also used reports from the city, such as the Office of Sustainability's Thrive report, to get kind of a scorecard of where we stand in green space today, and then look at the distribution of our green spaces using Savvy data in order to see how these spaces are equitably or inequitably distributed and how we can improve that in the future. So even if green space isn't your jam, I hope you're able to use these tools to research something that you're passionate about in your community.
My name is Caswin Ramos, and I have a question for you. Do you know who planned your city? Maybe you think it's developers. You might possibly think it's your city government too. But if you participated in the People's Planning Academy, you might think you have the power to plan your city. That's what I learned. And that was one of the most powerful things that I think I could have learned. I'm so grateful for my participation in the People's Planning Academy. I feel like I've gained the knowledge, the skills, and even the confidence to do research on my city and its history, and also to have, deep conversations about how it changes moving forward. I recommend that anyone who has the ability to participate in upcoming classes. From the courses and facilitators and speakers, I've gained the ability to do some research that I've always wanted to do, and that's about home ownership and affordable housing in the city of Indianapolis and how it impacts African American people. My project is called Seeking Home, and I use my own family's experience to tell the story about housing for Black people in the city of Indianapolis. If you have a chance, please participate in the People's Planning Academy. You'll gain everything that I've talked about and even more, possibly. But the bigger thing that you can do is become an advocate for your own communities. I just want to say thank you to the whole team, the speakers, the facilitators, for an amazing course. Thank you.
Oh, it was so nice watching those videos. Congrats to all the Academy graduates. It's been such a pleasure working with you. I'm so proud of each of you. I've been so impressed with our thought-provoking conversations and your research over the course of the training. So please give yourself a pat on the back, and those of you joining us virtually on Facebook and YouTube, to give a virtual round of applause for our People's Planning Academy graduates. I'm looking forward to all of the great work you're going to do in our city. Also, for those of you watching, if you're interested in learning more about city planning, you don't have to wait until the next training. As part of the virtual training, our team created a series of educational videos about city planning, development, and researching local history. Those videos are now available to the public on the DMD Communications YouTube channel. Thank you again for joining the celebration. Again, congrats to our graduates. Have a wonderful night, everyone.